Thank you, Anil. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another session of our spring webinar series. So here's a quick intro. What is BPA or what best practice assessment? BPA is a tool which used Panorama's tech support file and analyze Panorama and Prisma access configuration. It shows current state of best practices, security adoption, and also suggests specific changes which are needed to align with the security best practices. It helps you to understand how you can improve and where to improve security posture. It provides a baseline for comparison and shows you how to transition to the best practices. Why we should run the best practice assessment? Following the security best practices reduces the attack surface, it increases your visibility into the network traffic, prevent known and unknown attacks, protects what's most valuable to your business, proprietary resources, source code, sensitive company and customer data, critical infrastructures, whatever gives your company a competitive advantage, it helps you to protect that. According to Gartner's research, 99% of the breaches through 2023 will be due to misconfigurations. So following the best practices can protect you, your resources. So here you can see the transition to the best practices. Once you run the best practice assessment, BPA to evaluate your security posture. And once you get the result, you need to prioritize what you want to make changes and prioritize your improvements. Take the next steps and transition safely to the best practices. And transition to the best practice state without risking the availability of the critical application. And once you implement those changes, run the BPA again to measure progress and prioritize the next set of security improvements. So you can see here the flow. You need to generate the report and then evaluate that security policy adoption. Then evaluate the best practice configuration and implement those changes, prioritize those changes, and then again rerun the report, and then the second phase start. Prisma Access Best Practice Assessment. Earlier, it was only BPA or Best Practice Assessment was available for Palo Alto Next Gen Firewall and the Panorama related. But now Prisma Access Best Practice Assessment is also available. So at the moment, what I'm covering is specific to the Panorama Managed. As Anil mentioned the agenda, we will be covering, giving you highlights about the cloud managed building checks as well, which are related to the BPA. So this is specific to the Panorama Managed only. So the Prisma Access BPA reports aims to guide Prisma Access security posture. This report can be generated using Panorama's tech support file. It will process the configuration which needed to address the Prisma Access features. It focuses on tracking feature adoption, security posture, and features which are associated with the Prisma Access. It gives you the ability to track best practice recommendation, trending, summary graphs at tenant level. Process the device groups, template stacks, which are configured in the Prisma Access configuration settings, and any parent device group for the configured device or groups in the Prisma Access configuration. Prisma Access BPA report has some specific features. Let's have a look what exactly we are getting. So you can track adoption heat map trending over a period of time for each tenant. So if you're running a multi-tenant environment, so this report will give you information on the per tenant level. In the heat map section, you can see here adoption heat map. You can track at the per tenant level. You can make the security compliance framework such as NIST, CIS, critical security controls, and other at each tenant level. So in the best practice assessment tab, Once you generate the report, you will see there these tabs. And in the best practice assessment tab, once you click over there, you can also filter per tenant level, which gives you the capability summary and as compared to the frameworks such as NIST and Critic, NIS and CLS. It gives you the ability to view the BPA at individual tenant level. As I mentioned in the adoption heat maps and the adoption summary and trending, you can get more granular information at each tenant level, the trends, overall capability of adoption you can monitor. How you can generate Prisma Access BPA report. There are two ways to generate the Prisma Access BPA report. One is to the customer support portal. Another one is using a BPA API token. Let's have a look how we can generate BPA report through the customer support portal. In order to generate the BPA report through using the CSP or customer support portal, you should have proper roles assigned in the customer support portal. If you're an admin, you can run report. You don't need any extra roles or need to do any configuration. But if you're not an admin, you're a standard user or not a super user even, you need to assign role to run the BPA. For that, you need to log in into your customer support portal account, and from the customer support portal, after authentication, you go to the manage user on your left side. Click on the manage user. It will show the list of all the users you have added into your customer support portal account, which some will be standard user, super user, domain admin. Click on the user, which is standard user, and you want to assign the BPA role. Click on this added tab, and then you can add here the BPA role, BPA user for that standard user, and then save this configuration. Now this standard user has the privileges to run the BPA report, and can perform and run the BPA. And you can confirm it once you go to the user, whatever standard user is, they log in into the customer support portal account. You will be able to see the best practice assessment will be showing up here. It means that he has now the privilege to run the BPA report. Now, how you can generate and download the BPA report. So as mentioned, you need Panorama's tech support file. The first step is to generate the Panorama's tech support file. Log in into your Panorama, the device tab, support and tech support file, and generate the tech support file. Save your tech support file, and then you can drop down the tech support file in this dialog box here. Once you upload your Panorama's tech support file, it will give you this architecture classification. You can select here, or you can click this step, skip this step to run the BIP without map zone mapping, or drag and drop the architecture value from the classifications. You can use this drop-down menu to select the value. And in the next step, it will show you two options here: industry field and the BPA report type. Industry field is auto-populated, but you can change as well. The drop-down menu if it's showing not showing the correct information about the industry you belong to. BPA report type. You will see here, if you click on the drop-down menu, you will see here there will be two types: Prisma Access and Strata. Make sure that once you're running a Prisma Access BPA, you are selecting Prisma Access here. And then click on the generate that report. Once you click on the generate report, you will see that the HTML report has been generated and it will automatically download into your computer. And you can see on your computer this whole, and you can download the summary and view as well, but it should be shown here. Now let's have a look how to generate the Prisma Access BPA report using API. With the help of API, it allows the customers to programmatically generate the BPA data without the need to provide an entire TSF or tech support file. You can now able to request their BP API token from the website, which is customer success. Palo Alto's customer success website. You can request the API token, and we'll share the link. And you can just log into the website and then email to me the API token, and you will get an email API token. This for the API, this authentication is for this API is a token based. So if you forgot your token and you need to request a new one, then you need to contact the Palo Alto, that your account team or the customer success team to request a new one. So this report will be generated using the BPA API with the application named Postman. And this communication with the API and the application is done for the HTTPS, which provide an extra layer of security. So you can import the Postman collection app, and once it's imported, you will see that it has the Postman collection title as a BP API. This links to download the Postman collection app is available on our live community page. So if you are looking for the information, you can just go and get the link from there and download this application. So once we download and this application and import all the configuration environment variables. So you can see the variables here. These are the BP API token. You will get this information field, and then IP, device user, device, and all this information you see. The Postman collection app helps facilitate this flow, like user credentials are used to grab API key from the target device. And once you get all the information, you can execute the API calls from the Postman collection app in sequential order. Just click send, and you'll see that at a high level, it contains the JSON format, the version of the BP associated with this job. So it does not only create the BPA JSON results, but also you can download the BP report bundle, which contains the same HTML report in the PDF report as you did in the customer support portal as well. For that, you need to just click on that, the BP generate the zip bundle, and it will generate the HTML report for you. Now you have generated the report either through using API token or through using the Panorama tech support file. You have the report. Now let's have a look how you can identify and prioritize best practices. So check adoption of key security capabilities. Using an iterative approach, you can transform your security posture to a best practice state, one step at a time. Measuring the progress as you go at your pace at a level of comfort. The results show that the configuration meets or exceed the industry average adoption. For example, you can see here, for the wildfire, antivirus, anti-spyware, DNS sync, and with the industry benchmark, industry adoption of average. Overall adoption versus industry average adoption. In its lab report, I don't have the best practice mode information showing here because it's not enabled. So this indicates that the next course of action is evaluate whether you need to add more security profiles, more policies to see if you can elevate the existing profiles, the best security profiles, and to tighten security. Check adoption of key security capabilities. This page shows not only your level of adoption compared to your industry, but if you have run more than one BPA report, it also shows your level of adoption compared to the last time you ran. So for example, if the profile and the logging results shows that your adoption of all 7 capabilities meet your industry's average, security assurance will be enabled. So if you need assistance in that, you can um, ask to your customer success team, your account team. And if you have any questions, please feel free to post the Q&A and we will answer that. Evaluate security policy capability adoption. This report shows the current adoption percentage of for each metric except the industry's average, which provides adoption. Average in your industry against your adoption. We can see here that overall adoption, industry's average, and the best practice mode, the three things. The overall adoption is basically the adoption of security profiles in security policy, allow rules, and the percentage is based on the number of allow rules that have one or more profiles enabled. And this report will not count the disabled rule. Uh, Industry's average, high technology industry belongs to an industry's average, is basically average adoption of security profiles and allow rules. And the best practice mode, adoption of security profile configured in the recommended best practice manner in the allow rule. And this BPA report only count rules with a profile that passes the best practice checks. Identify the gaps in adoption. The heat map shows where your security policy is strong and where there are gaps in the security policy. Capability adoption that you can focus on improving to gain the maximum visibility into traffic and maximum protection against attacks. Set goals for the security capability adoption and use the recommended as the best practice baseline. Access your current posture against the baseline to identify the gaps. The heat maps help identify devices, zones, and the areas where you can improve security policy capability adoption. You can review this adoption information by device group, serial number, uh, and you can use column filters. In heat map security profile adoption summary, you can check adoption rates uh, and use the recommendations for the best practices. And if the actual adoption rate does not match the recommendation, then you should close the gap. Identify the rules to improve. After you identify the gap in security policy, use a rule detail view to list rules that require further investigations. Or you can configure the column filters here. Use the filters on your report to match the gap identification criteria. So once you identify the gaps in adoption, the result in the rule list, you can export and hand off to the operational team who are managing your local firewalls or rules in your Prisma access policies, everything to implement those changes. For example, create a rule, a detailed filter to identify the rules that allow all traffic and don't have a vulnerability protection profile configured. So you can filter that. Evaluate best practice configuration. When you change the view from the heat map to the BPA report, the report shows the best practice summary. This summary presents best practice configuration checks. The results map to the control categories of industry standards such as CIS and NIST. The purpose of this information is to provide a good way to learn how BPA checks tie to the industry standards, not to act as an audit. Like the adoption summary, the best practice summary includes metrics that show your current adoption rate, adoption progress. Review the best practice summary. When you change the view from the heat map to the BPA, Okay, now review the configurations. Okay, I was on the previous slide. Review the best practice summary. So you need to click on the mapping definition, which shows a complete list of all the map checks and their individual scores. And you can see here, when all the best practice checks names are listing here and their scores. If you want more details, you can just click on that. It will open up the pop open, and it will explain you all the details about the checks, what exactly it meant for, and all the definition you will find there. Review the best practice policy configurations. Security rules check display rule-based checks. You can uh, click on the question marks here and find more details here to view the description. For each check, click on that. What exactly you can find here: rule enable, true, application, disable server response, expiry. All those information can be seen here. And again, you can see here that the tenant levels and the Prisma deployment levels. You can filter that per tenant level. If you're running a multi-tenant environment, you can select the tenant you want to look into the report, as well as the Prisma Access deployment type. Deployment type means if you're looking for the particular information for service connection, remote networks, global protect. So you can use this filter to select the deployment type. Security rule-based checks summarizes the best practice checks results by device group with past field status and recommendation for what to do about the field checks. And if you, for any further information, you can just click on each and this question mark for further help, which explains you what exactly this best practice check is. And this icon, if you click on here, it will show the short video about explanation about this check. You can see here, interzone deny rule with logging is failed, and underneath you can see the recommendation. It's recommended to override interzone default tool with any action. Similarly for the HIP rules, whatever the check is failing, underneath you can see the recommendations. Review the best practice object configurations. The object tab shows all the checks related to the different types of firewall objects. You can select the type of the object you want to review to understand the existing configuration and to identify the potential gap in the best practice configurations, which are related to the global protect, tag, security profiles. So from here, you can, as I mentioned, Prisma Access deployment tab, you can see a service setup, remote networks, mobile users, and this all information is shows here. For example, antivirus profile, click selecting from here. And then from here, you can select a deployment type and it will show you all the best practice checks here. And review the best practice network configurations. Network tab shows all the checks which are related to the network, which are related to the network configurations. On the left navigation, you can select here the network. And in the network, you can see here it's a zone, global protect, portals, gateway, network profile, IPsec, cryptos, all information. This report shows the current configuration for each item. The best practice check results for each item appears with its current configurations. You can specify Tenant and a Prisma Access deployment type to limit the scope of the information displayed. And each check has a pass fail status recommendation for the field best practice checks. You can again get help, click on this icon, question mark, or this camera icon to get help, to get to know more about information about this checks, what exactly is the recommendations. Review best practice device configurations. The device in the Panorama tab shows you all the checks which are related to the device management configurations, and you can select device management checks you want to review to understand the existing configurations and to identify the potential gap in the best practice configurations, which are related to the firewall. And when you review the device or the Panorama tab, at a minimum review, you should review dynamic updates, management interface settings, administrators, minimum password complexity, and all those checks. Again, the Panorama tab shows you all the checks which are into the Panorama I talked about in the previous slide. So let's have a look how to prioritize the best practice checks. So prioritize improvement to your configuration so you can close security gaps. Strengthen posture. Strengthening your device management posture secures your Prisma access deployment by preventing unauthorized access that could compromise it. It reduces the operational impact of unexpected events and provide a greater visibility into your operations. You can follow the best practice for secure administrative access to prevent unauthorized and unsecured access to the device management interface. Once you configure the changes on the BPA to validate those changes, measure the progress, and then prioritize the next step. Improve visibility. You can protect yourself against threats you cannot see. You cannot protect yourself against threats you cannot see. So you must ensure you have fully visibility into the traffic across all users and applications. At all times, complete visibility into the applications, content, and user on your network is the first step towards informed policy control. Maximize security profile adoption. After you review adoption summary and identify the gaps in adoption, remediate the gaps using safe transition steps to improve and move towards the full and best practice security profile implementation. Maximize logging adoption, including log forwarding across all the security policy rules. Configure dynamic content update. Plan your SSL decryption deployment. Enable user ID in user zones, internal trusted zones to map application traffic and associate threats to the users and devices. Implement initial best practice control. After you gain the visibility, the next step is the context of the traffic on your network, application, content, threats, and users. So you should implement strict control to reduce the attack surface and prevent known and unknown threats to complete the transition to the best practice. So after you review your adoption summary and identify the gaps, you should follow these transition steps and move towards the best practice security profiles. And once you implement control capabilities, you can scan allow the traffic and detect and block network applications, exploits, run the BPA again, and measure the gaps. And then fine tune or enhance best practice controls. After you implement your control over your network traffic, start fine tuning the controls and implement additional functionality to improve your security posture. So if you have not converted internal application to a custom application to gain visibility and control to the traffic, convert internal application to the custom application. Tune security policies to the best practice after using safe transition steps. Block known malicious IP addresses. Deploy Dual Protect to extend security platforms to users and devices. Configure multi-factor authentication and run the BPA again to validate those changes. So this is how you can prioritize the best practice change with one step at a time. Transition to the best practices. Security profiles enable you to inspect the traffic for threats such as vulnerability, malware, C2 communication, and even unknown threats, prevent them from compromising your network. And using various types of threat signatures. The end goal is to reach a best practice state for all your security profiles. However, to ensure that availability of your business critical applications. It will not be feasible to implement a full best practice security profile configuration from the start In most cases, you can safely block some signatures, file types, or protocols while alerting on the other until you gain the information and confidence to finish a safe transition to the best practice. So the glaring weakness of the port-based security policies are well known. So you cannot see the application uses a port. So uh, apply and move towards the application security profiles. So this makes easier if you're using a port base, so it makes easier for the attackers to install the malware through the network and compromise your network because you have no visibility into the application on your network and no ability to prevent those threats. So in this contrast, the application-based security profile using this app IDs, which provide visibility into the application um, regardless of the port application. So I would highly encourage you to register for our upcoming two sessions, as Anil mentioned in the agenda, which are talking about the adoption of security capabilities and how you can implement those changes. Best practice checks in the cloud. So far, I was talking about BPA report, transition best practice. All focus was Panorama managed only. Now let's have a look. If you're using a cloud managed Prisma access, how you can use the BPA checks or best practice checks in the cloud managed. So the cloud managed Prisma Access app in the hub, it has a built-in feature which checks the best practice check directly into the Prisma Access. You don't need to run BPA report, don't need tech support file, customer support portal, BPA token, nothing. It has a built-in feature which checks directly, are you following the Prisma Access best practice checks or not, best practice assessment, and help to improve your security posture. And these are inline best practice checks. So these best practice checks are available for your security policy rule-based. Rule-based checks look at how security policy is organized and managed, including configuration settings that apply across many rules, security rules, security profiles, which includes anti-spyware, vulnerability protection, wildfire, antivirus, URL, DNS security, authentication, decryption, and global protect. So these best practice checks directly into the Prisma access, so you can get a live evaluation of your configuration. As soon as you make some changes, save your configuration, you will see that failed and passed checks across all the rules. You can examine the best practice details by clicking each of the checks, and you can review that these the niche security controls and CS control, as which those are features that are available in our BPA report for the Panorama managed. To get started with this, you can access overall security posture. You can go log into your Prisma Access app on a hub, apps.paloaltonetworks.com, and go to the overview tab in the manage section. You can go to the overview tab. In the overview tab, you will see the detailed information of our best practice view. You can see here security policy controls, security policy checks. If you want to know more about cloud managed Prisma access and best practice checks, what features are available, we have done our 2 webinar already on the cloud managed, which are recorded and available on live community and YouTube live community channel. I would highly encourage you, please watch those recorded webinars and register for upcoming cloud managed webinars where we'll be talking about in detail about these best practice checks, specifically cloud managed Prisma access, how you can use, what are the use cases, and we'll talk about in detail and the API support and everything. So you can see here the best practice score. The best practice score displayed on this dashboard on the URL access control. These scores gives you a quick view into the best practice progress. At a glance, you can identify the areas for further investigation or where you want to take action to improve your security. You can see here the CS checks, failed rule-based checks, and all this information is available here. Uh, Field level checks show you the exact where your configuration does not align with the best practice, and it provides best practice guidance in line, so you can take immediately action as soon as you enable a rule. It's in line. It gives you all information. You can click here and see the best practice checks, and all these checks do not disable the server. All the checks are matching, and it's in a real time. And you can, if any of those checks are failed, you can go and make changes. So here is a comprehensive view into your implementation of the feature which aligns with the best practices. So rule-based checks highlights configuration changes you can make outside of individual. For example, you can make a policy object that is used across several rules. You can see all the information here. And in the best practice report tab, you can see a detailed report and rule-based checks, profile checks, all the security profiles, all this information. You can download this report, you can export this report, and this report is divided into the four main sections, which are summary, which gives you a comprehensive view of all of your failed and past checks, a rule base, which looks at how and your policy is organized, whether configuration settings are applied across many rules to align with the best practice or not. Rules section, which shows your rules are failing the best practices. So you can start reviewing and update the rules. And the profile section, profile checks shows you how your profile stacks up against the best practices. So if you're using the Prisma Access dashboard in the best practice dashboard in the Prisma Access, you can filter the report as I mentioned, um, uh, and you can share it as well, and you can download and best practice report. It's available. It will show you in the PDF, and it will show you up to the top 20 field rule information. Once you download the report, which you will see the top 20 field reports as well. So yeah, this is all about the Prisma Access Best Practice Assessment BPA report for the cloud managed and Panorama managed. So if you want to know more about cloud managed, I would highly encourage you to pre-register for our upcoming webinars. Uh, I would highly encourage you to please run the Prisma Access BPA report today and have a look where you are standing in terms of your security posture, your best practices, and adoption of your security policy and rules. This is all about for today's webinar. If you have any questions, please feel free to post in the Q&A and we will answer it.